the former central bank governor, Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo, has won the governorship primaries for the All Progressive Grand Alliance held yesterday with a landslide victory. Arise correspondent Jemima Boloko reports from Awka.
It was a carnival-like atmosphere at the primaries of the All Progressive Grand Alliance in Awka. After several hours of voting by members, leading aspirant Professor Chukwuma Soludo emerged as Apga's flag bearer after grabbing a landslide of 740 votes to defeat Eze Wankor Christopher, who polled 41 votes, Tangod Ibe, who had 4 votes, and Okolo Chibuzo, who got 7 votes.
Accept your nomination as the gubernatorial candidate of Apga in the November 6, 2021 governorship election.
Incumbent Anambra State Governor Willie Obiano and other stakeholders of the party were present at the primaries. Soludo promised to use his international network to transform the state if elected in the November 6th governorship polls.
The challenging times in Nigeria today, you need somebody who can manage resources, somebody who can attract development funds, to be able to drive his programs. So during the consultations and local government tours, the party people were able to show clearly their preference, and that's what is reflecting in the results we are seeing so far.
The total number of accredited delegates who participated in the primary election was 795, while 792 votes were casted.
So we need somebody in this era of COVID, and even when we are in the post-COVID era, we still need such a person, a renowned economist, who can add 1 and 2 together and bring Anambra State to a level that we all want it to be.
I believe, one, he has worked harder than any other person in terms of going around the world to talk to the delegates, to say his ideas, to generally motivate people about the new Anambra he's trying to create.
Jemima Boloko, Arise News, Anambra.
Meanwhile, the Jude Okeke faction of the All Progressive Grand Alliance had earlier suspended Professor Chukwuma Soludo before his emergence as Apga flag bearer in the governorship primaries. A factional National Publicity Secretary Ikechukwu Chukwunyere, at a briefing in Abuja, says the National Working Committee took the decision to suspend Soludo for alleged anti-party activities and for promoting disunity among party members. Soludo belongs to Victor Oye leadership of Apga.
The National Working Committee of Apga has also resolved to suspend former Governor of Central Bank of Nigeria and governorship aspirant Professor Chukwuma Soludo from the party for anti-party activities. This suspension has also been ratified this morning by the National Executive Committee of the party, which rose from a meeting earlier this morning. The NWC applauded the members of the party in Anambra State who thronged the ward offices across the 326 wards in the state to elect 3-man ward delegates who would elect the governorship candidate of the party on 1st of July 2021, in line with the provisions of the party constitutions, INEC guidelines, and the Electoral Act. The party is ready for the July 1st primary election, and the winner will lead Apga to victory at the November 6, 2021 governorship election.
Coming back to you, Tundu, I mean, this is set up for a big, big fight.
I mean, so many intrigues already. You win by a landslide 740 votes out of 792, and yet there's drama being suspended by one faction. INEC as well has come out to say that Apga could have acted in violation of Section 85 of the Electoral Act, which demands 21 days notice before any political party has any kind of a conference, congress, or meeting. And INEC is saying that Apga sent a letter on June 16th. This primaries was held on June 23, so obviously that's not 21 days. And even in the letter of June 16, it was a list of delegates without mention of the candidates. And what we do not want is what we've seen in previous elections, whereby INEC faults the primaries of the parties. The primaries is the foundation. If you don't get that right, whatever you try to build on that will collapse. We don't want a case where it ends up in courts and it has to be, governor of Anambra State has to be decided by the courts and not the people. So I don't know what's going to happen there. And Charles Soludo, yes, congratulations to him. But like we've said, he has his work cut out, even within the party. And you have APC snapping at the heels of Apga with their primaries to hold on Saturday. Their chairman is our governor, Prince Dakwa Abiodun. I hope APC has done the needful and dotted their I's and crossed their T's where INEC is concerned, because our laws are not supposed to be observed in the breach. Political parties must adhere to that Electoral Act. It's extremely important.
Well, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has been very consistent since the 2019 general elections in asking political parties to do the needful, beginning with ensuring internal democracy within the party itself and ensuring that they conduct transparent primaries. It's unfortunate that this first major electoral event, heading towards 2023, is mired in controversy because Apga itself appears to be factionalized. In the days to come, we'll end up knowing eventually what the truth is about the politics within Apga itself. But from what was conducted for the Apga primaries election, yes, based on the outcome, Charles Soludo, Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo, triumphed convincingly. He had an overwhelming victory, 740 votes out of 792. It's quite an impressive outing. But this is not Charles Soludo's first coming. In 2009, he contested for the governorship of Anambra State on the platform of the People's Democratic Party. Another time, he lost to Mr. Peter Obi. Again in, was it 2015? He contested again on the platform of Apga, but he was disqualified even within the party itself. So let's see how this drama this time around in 2021 will play out. But Soludo has been very consistent that given his credentials, first-class honors economics from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, MSc economics, PhD economics, 1989, former advisor to the International Monetary Fund, former advisor to the DFID, former economic advisor to President Olusegun Obasanjo, former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, and also currently member of the National Economic Advisory Group of Nigeria. So he comes to the job with very strong credentials, and he talks all the time about what he calls the Soludo solution. He wants to apply in Anambra State what he calls the Soludo solution. This is his third time seeking that opportunity. But at the end of the day, the election on November 6, 2021, the first major gubernatorial election, in which INEC, the Independent Electoral Commission of Nigeria, will apply the new polling units. Anambra will be the first test case for these polling units that have been employed. Will it win? That decision remains with the people of Anambra State, who at the end of the day will be the ones to choose the party and the candidate that they consider good enough to take Anambra forward. A state where there may have been progress under the present governor, but there have also been a lot of challenges. So whoever becomes governor in that state, has his or her work cut out for him or her. And we just hope that all will go well and that that test run by INEC on November 6 will work out well. As for Apga, they have a responsibility to ensure transparency, accountability, and internal democracy within their affairs. I hope that we will not wake up tomorrow and another faction will show up, apart from the OKK and the Umo faction.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate you this morning. Factions here and there. Goodness me. That's all on news headlines. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll have Ruth Zudiri, Michael Wilson, Adeso Omorua, Aaron Akerjola to give us updates on Africa, global business, COVID-19, and sporting activities across the globe. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our very own Rotas Adiri is here to give us an African business update. Over to you, Rotas.
Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Rufai.
In the
Good
studio this morning.
Yes, I am in the studio. Surprise, surprise. So we pick off with the NNPC and fuel smuggling. This is actually on the cover of today's This Day newspaper headline that fuel smuggling has now reached 42 million barrels per day. That is PMS smuggling out of Nigeria. Now, remember, in your exclusive interview with President Buhari, you brought up fuel subsidies, and you asked him about that, and he diverted and said that what needed to be done was that smuggling of petrol needed to be clamped down on. And so Mele Kyari met with the DSS, he met with the EFCC, he met with a number of agencies, and said that the meeting that had been called was at the behest of the president. And he also said that the NNPC was pretty much overwhelmed. Now, if you look at for a long time, he's doubted the consumption numbers coming out of Nigeria in terms of PMS. He's been saying that, look, this thing can't be up to 100 million liters per day. For about 42 of that, again, is accounted for smuggling. So the president wants all these agencies to get together, Customs, DSS, NNPC, so on and so forth, and try to clamp down on smuggling. But look, you are treating a symptom instead of the actual illness. The smuggling is aided by arbitrage. Arbitrage is the simultaneous buying and selling of an asset in different markets in order to take advantage of mispricing. So because PMS is being sold at a lower price here and because of subsidies and at a higher price in our neighboring markets, that's the reason why we are seeing smuggling taking place. So until that is addressed, it will continue to happen unless, of course, that they can clamp down on it. So again, 42 million liters per day estimated to be heading out of the country in terms of smuggling. Still on oil and gas, the petroleum industry bill, apparently, surprise, surprise, the June passage is being threatened. Look, can you imagine? Can you imagine, Rufai? Can you imagine? It's in today's This Day newspaper. They are quoting Reuters, who said that out of nowhere, at the last minute, indigenous camps are asking for higher portions of allocations of what they get from oil revenues. And this is, again, I don't know if there's much of an analysis here. There's been so many delays here. It is quite suspicious as to how, and the National Assembly, by the way, is going on recess in 2 weeks. If they don't pass it in the next 2 weeks, it's probably not going to pass until September. And this is after we got promises in March, we got promises in April, we got promises in June. So, look, again, Financial Derivatives Company Limited has put an estimate at $15 billion annually being lost as a result of the delay in passage of the PIB. For elements, host communities to be coming out at this final hour saying they want higher allocations, I don't know what to say at this point. To trade, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the World Trade Organization's Director General, at the opening ceremony of the African Development Bank's meetings, said that we need lower trade costs in Africa in order to boost the respective economies. Trade costs, she says, are too high. They need to come down. And that, look, we've got the African Continental Free Trade Agreement kicking off already. We have to reduce trade costs. Now, look, on the Global Business Report, we've had logistics executives on the show talking about how hard it is to move goods up and down within Nigeria, right? We know what's going on at the ports. Again, I talked about urgency yesterday and how these matters need to be urgently addressed. We know the bottlenecks at the ports, ETO, the tech that was brought out to try to clean up the ports, the corruption, the human element. Until we get costs down here, the ripple effect will be felt when we try to trade with our neighbors within Africa and also beyond. So that's just something that needs to be addressed, and she's highlighting it again as the Director General of the World Trade Organization. This thing is in our hands to sort out as Africa's largest economy and Africa's giant in order to get us where we need to be. Finally, Bitcoin. There is a company by the name of AfriCrypt run by two brothers. and they apparently have duped investors to the tune. There they are, those two gentlemen right there. Their names are Reyes and Amir KG. This is in South Africa, and they made off with about $3.8 billion worth of Bitcoin. Apparently, they sent out a notice to their investors telling them that they had been hacked and they shouldn't report it to the authorities, because if they report it to the authorities, it will slow down their ability to be able to recover the coins. Again, South Africa is not, this is not new. There was another case of about $1 billion being, investors being duped, about 26,000 investors being duped to the tune of $1 billion in Bitcoin. Now you've got this 3.8 billion scam here. Again, look, we go back to what the Central Bank of Nigeria did with respect to halting financial institutions, aiding crypto transactions. They talked about safety. They talked about being alert. China's done the same thing. Yet again, this is yet an example of the ugly side of cryptocurrencies. I think it can be traced. I mean, the funds the coins, that is, have to be moved from wallet to wallet. So we'll see if it can be traced. But again, that's our African business update.
A blockchain, because everything is in a blockchain, really. So you can trace that. But I mean, that's also the calls for our own digital currency are rife. And I'm happy that the Central Bank of Nigeria has led the way on this. And I can't wait for the central bank to launch their own digital currency to be able to track monetary transactions and the like. I'm really happy about that. Rotos, concerning PIB, somebody will have thought that the fact that we're losing 15 billion every year for not signing PIB will mean anything to us. But obviously, the numbers don't mean anything to us. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, there was a report that came out in the papers. I think it was attributed to the then governor of Lagos State, Akinwumi Ambode, that says we lose well over 500 billion because of the traffic situation in Lagos. Somebody would have thought that figure will allow them spring into action and do something. But nothing has been done as regards traffic situation in Lagos. Nothing has been done as regards PIB. You see, it has become a country of let me use the local parlance, sidoning and looking. We just sit down and we look at things to deteriorate so much. I hope we change.
Very quickly, with petroleum smuggling and the effect on the Nigerian economy. This is not new. Governments in the last 20 years in Nigeria have always complained about how Nigerian petrol sells at a cheaper rate across the border than inside Nigeria. And all kinds of measures have been introduced over the years. The question to ask is, why is it that those measures have never worked? The most recent being the closure of the borders by the Buhari administration, targeting all forms of smuggling and trying to help the Nigerian economy. And then just a few months later, we're being told that fuel that is smuggled from Nigeria, finished product, is over 102 million liters, and that Nigeria does not need more than 60 million liters. There was a point made by Mele Kyari, which is to the effect that, look, we don't need more than 60 million liters of, refined crude in Nigeria for domestic consumption. At what point did they arrive at that specific figure? At what point did they do the calculations? Because what we've been told before now is that there's been lack of transparency in terms of, in fact, what we consume in Nigeria. Now, the EFCC has launched what is called Operation White. And it's the EFCC that is supposed to help the country with this forced smuggling challenge. And it's called Operation White. Where is the customs? What level of interagency collaboration has been put in place? And I just hope that this is not part of an attempt to remind Nigerians that whether we like it or not, the pump price of fuel will soon go up. There's been a build-up. The Minister of State will say something. He will tell you, in June, we are not likely to increase the pump price. Somebody else will come and say, well, we're still considering it. But what the GMD of the NNPC has said very clearly is that if there is appropriate pricing, Nigerians would this time around pay 256 naira per litre. About 2-3 weeks ago, we were told we will pay 385 naira per litre. Now, why don't they just conclude their meeting with Labour that has been going on almost forever and let Nigerians know what indeed is the truth about the pump price of fuel or the downstream sector, the deregulation of the downstream sector? and we can all deal with the consequences. But as for smuggling, the security agencies have their work cut out for them. They coming forward to complain is an admission of failure in that regard.
Well, that's exactly what it is. Nigeria is just so inefficiently run. I truly despair. Imagine running your home like this, or even your organization. It's actually a miracle that we're still limping along the way we are. As for the PIB, I actually have no objection when it's reported that community leaders are demanding 10% instead of 2.5% of their share of the petroleum products produced in their locale. When the ruling party has been so insincere about restructuring, this is exactly why people will dig their heels in, even at the last minute. So we can really kiss that $15 billion goodbye for 2021, it appears at this point.
Wow, so sad.
Well said, agreed. But, this is the last minute. Why are they now coming? They should have sorted this out.
But they probably have been trying. I don't imagine that they sat there with 2.5%, which is actually an insult. I'm sure they've been trying. But, do you blame them, Rotis? They want it set in stone.
I don't blame them too.
In black and white.
I don't blame them, but this is the urgency we've been talking about. This should have been sorted out ages ago. But we're out of time.
Rotus, and please, don't blame the National Assembly. Like the National Assembly said, we should not blame them for the flood that happened in their place. So
I saw that flood. I saw it on Wall Street.
Don't blame them. Don't over to you.
Thank you, Rotus. Moving on now for more business updates. Michael Wilson joins us from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. Another choppy day, really, and the day yesterday and the day probably today will belong to day traders rather than directional investors, despite all the noise, though equities, precious metals, currencies finished the day broadly where they started. The noise then, so fairly dovish comments from the Fed, but later in the day, two Fed governors, Messrs. Bostic and Kaplan, abruptly reversed that, gold sharply reversing gains and so on, talking about higher interest rates sooner than later. Asia markets remained basically equally level, honestly. That's all to say about it. Basically, as far as the United States is concerned, there's a slight influence about a U.S. bipartisan group appeared to have reached what's described as a preliminary agreement with the president about the way they're going to fund this huge infrastructure plan. So Wall Street finished the day fairly mixed. Mainland China slipped today, down marginally. Hong Kong again marginally. Nikkei 225 flatline, basically. Let's talk about Tesla rival in China, XPeng Motors, to raise up to £2 billion. Now, not from China, but in a Hong Kong IPO. They've got a green light to do it. It'll raise between $1 and $2 billion. The bottom line, though, is that the company will therefore be subject to both the rules of US and Hong Kong regulators. That's either good or bad, depending on where you're actually coming from. China's crackdown on big tech will continue. This is according to one of the leading private equity companies of the world, BlackRock. One of their portfolio managers actually said that in black and white to investors. Thus, the firm is staying away from dominant tech companies for a little while longer. And just for your records, Alibaba shares down about 9% so far this year, Tencent up about 3%. So it's having an effect on large tech. SoftBank boss in Japan. He wants SoftBank. He wants to be seen. Masayoshi Son, who's the chief executive of SoftBank, wants to be seen as the new Rothschild. I.e., what the Rothschilds did was they gave the financial oil, as it were, to industry. What he wants to do is a similar kind of thing, but as far as AI is concerned and tech, the information revolution. He wants to be the new Rothschild. Will he? Who knows? So therefore, a bit of a recap as far as the United States is concerned. We had that Fed speak, dovish first, then President Raphael Bostic saying that, as I said to you, that maybe an interest rate rise sooner rather than later. Warren Buffett doesn't mind about interest rate rises, talking with the good doctor about what rich people should be doing to keep the world going. Buffett is giving away $4.1 billion to charity. He says to him, society has a use for my money, I don't. Perhaps we should all write to Mr. Buffett and say, would he spare us a bob or two, as we used to say a long time ago. So basically, UK Bank of England, this is going to be an interesting one. Will they join the rest of the curve in terms of tightening. A lot of criticism going towards the Bank of England about whether they've not been quite tight enough, and they are disregarding the worries about inflation. Andy Haldane, he's one of the members, he retires today. You remember him, he was talking about the economy going, as he put it, gangbusters in the UK. And he was has been warning about inflation and all the rest of it, but he's going. Citigroup chief economist Catherine Mann is coming in. Again, what these people have to do with real life, I do not know. Would we not be better having, here's a question for you, would we be better having central bank authorities who had some knowledge and practice of business rather than economists and academics? Just a question. UK travel bosses seeking concessions. Now, here's the confusion. Angela Merkel wants EU countries to stop accepting UK visitors. The travel bosses met yesterday to try to convince the government it ought to revise where we can go on holiday. We'll get some kind of announcement about that maybe today. Oil, crude inventories actually tightening up very, very slightly. So therefore, that's all about OPEC Plus next week. What will they actually say? Gold's recovery is a brick wall at 1800, if I can use brick and gold in a similar sentence. And finally, day ahead is the jobless claims. We'll be talking about the Rotus on the Global Business Report. Will we get some more view about... we get some more Fed speak and more view about the US economy? Yes, we actually will. So basically, as this week comes to a close, I know it's only Thursday, but it is coming to a close. The week ahead, basically, is the big one. That's big figures, non-farm payrolls, China readings, PMIs, and so on. So we might have a better understanding at the end of next week, whether it be doves or hawks. That is the global view.
All right, Michael, great insight. Michael, I want to talk about corruption in the UK this morning. There's a report by FT that was saying that the Green Seal loan that your former Prime Minister, David Cameron, helped with when the Green Seal scandal happened, most of that COVID loans went to, guess what, the Gupta family that ruined the economy of South Africa. What is happening, Michael?
Corruption is happening and it's still under investigation. And we know about the Gupta family in South Africa. We know about the bosses of Liberty Steel and all the rest of it. It's a very, very complicated picture. I wouldn't like to comment particularly on an ongoing situation. What I would say is, in the rush to get this COVID pandemic relief out, we did say at the time, did we not? And it's less than a year ago, we did say on this programme that actually this requires some kind of supervision as well. It clearly didn't get that. We're going to get, I know there's the whole Green Seal saga is continuing, but there'll be lots more. There'll be lots more examples of companies and crooks that made off with pandemic money. Absolutely, of course. I think it'll happen in most countries, and it will still happen within the UK as well. So I think it's an ongoing story. Unfortunate, but there it is.
Well, John McAfee, the antivirus legend and icon, has taken his life after the Spanish court granted an extradition request for him to be repatriated to the United States. He has committed suicide. What's your take on that? What kind of man was he? And then, of course, Warren Buffett. He says, society needs my money. I don't need it. Should we believe him? Is that really philanthropy or just posturing? Who doesn't need money?
I believe him.
He makes money. He's made money by sensible investing, and we know what the Buffett formula is. You look at undervalued companies; it's quite simple. People have been doing it for years, and he's made a lot of money out of it. He's very famously frugal. He doesn't live in a grand style, and he is a philanthropist. And as I was saying yesterday, he gives away the money. As far as suicide's concerned, I honestly don't know. We'll wait for an obituary about this chap. I mean, he did a lot of good work, but he also was very erratic in his later days. He went to live in Central America. I was listening to some of the detail on the news this morning. It's not going to move the market. So I have to be honest, I didn't pay it an enormous amount of attention, but simply for those kind of reasons. But he was a colourful character. Wait for the obituaries to come out. They'll have a field day.
An extremely colorful character. I quite like Warren Buffett, as I'm sure you can tell, the Wizard of Omaha, your friendly neighborhood billionaire, sort of avuncular, with his chubby little cheeks. He's very sweet, I think, Dr. Abati. He doesn't need the money. He's really frugal and sensible. And he's persuaded a lot of other billionaires to be less grasping and avaricious. I actually quite like Warren Buffett. But my question is about Angela Merkel. And will she have her way? Is it really about protecting the EU from the Delta variant? Or is it about Germans wanting to hug the sun loungers?
Oh, that's a very difficult topic for me, particularly as England are now playing Germany in the football next Tuesday. So that's going to be quite a match, as it always is. I couldn't possibly comment about Germans and sun loungers and the rest of it. I know that Angela Merkel, she's not up for re-election. She's going to step down. I think that I still maintain this, that I think it's down to our government to get countries off and get them onto a green list so that the Brits can go away on holiday as they always do. If there's going to be a threat from Germany, I think the tourist nations will be speaking quite heavily to Angela Merkel, saying, how dare you try to take our business away, just by saying that you feel as though EU countries will stop UK travellers going to them. Why would they want to do that? I think that once they see the rate of our vaccinations, which they know well, but they also look to their own purses and think, do we actually want UK tourists there? Yes, they do. I'm sorry, but they do. Now, here's a conspiracy theory. If I were the Chancellor here, if I were the Finance Minister here, Rishi Sunak, I'd be saying to the Prime Minister, do you know what, let's put everybody on a red list and get everybody to spend their money in the UK. It's only £46 billion worth spent. Why not spend it in the UK?
All right, thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciate you. For updates on COVID-19 pandemic, Adesuwa Moro is here. Adesuwa, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Bati, and good morning, Tundu. The overall caseload of the COVID-19 globally has now surpassed 179 million, with at least 3.89 million deaths. And over 2.7 billion vaccines have been administered globally. Well, here in Nigeria, 44 new cases were officially reported in Nigeria. Lagos posted 32 of the new caseload out of the 44 we saw across the country. Now, a little over 2 million people have received the first dose of vaccines in Nigeria, while half of those have been fully vaccinated. According to the latest data by the NPHCDA, 1,005,234 individuals have received a second dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine currently being administered in Nigeria. And as the virus outpaced vaccines globally, the COVAX scheme, co-led by the World Health Organization, for fair distribution of the much-needed vaccines is planning a shake-up, and that's according to internal documents seen by Reuters. Its ambitions to get vaccines from manufacturers directly to the most urgent in need have fallen flat, as it has only distributed 19 million vaccines out of the 2 billion target for the year. Now, the overhaul is meant to reduce COVAX financial risks, increase its focus on the countries most in need, and reduce the participation of richer countries as both donors and recipients. What we have seen so far with COVAX is that wealthy countries have preferred to buy their vaccines directly from the manufacturers. And despite pleas by the program for these countries to bring back their surplus to be shared through the scheme, what we see is that these wealthy countries decide to donate directly to the countries to push vaccine diplomacy. COVAX currently has 190 countries, but only 40 countries have launched their vaccination drive through the initiative. It is expected that membership of the program will shrink in the coming months to next year, and of course the overhaul is expected to take place during the Gavi Alliance board meeting sometime yesterday or today. We'll be looking out for that outcome. Now, more than 150 employees at the Houston Methodist Church in Texas have been fired or resigned for refusing mandatory vaccinations against COVID-19. The hospital confirmed the news, saying it told its staff way back in April that they needed to have received the virus vaccination by June 7 or be suspended for 2 weeks. Now, the hospital yesterday said 150 employees either resigned in the 2-week suspension period or they were finally sacked yesterday. Earlier in the month, a federal judge threw out the lawsuit filed by over 100 of these staff members, they claim that the vaccines are experimental and dangerous, but the U.S. District Judge Hughes of Houston found their claims to be false and irrelevant. We'll closely watch this space because it's the first of its kind in the U.S., but certainly not the end of the debate on how far healthcare institutions can go to protect patients and others against the virus. We've also seen a bank, the Morgan Stanley in the U.S., issuing notification to its staff and customers to get vaccinated before they can come into its New York office. So that's the space to watch. And finally this morning, the Delta variant found for the first time in India could account for 90% of the new COVID cases in the European Union in the coming months. And that's according to the Blocks Disease Control Agency. It said this on Wednesday that at the moment, the Delta variant, which was first identified in India, is 40 to 60% more contagious than the Alpha variant first discovered in the UK, which is the dominant strain at the moment.
Yeah, the concern about the Delta variant is that it poses a risk of increase in hospitalization. And that's why the EU countries have expressed concern about it. But even in India itself, India is expressing concern about something that is called the Delta Plus,
yes,
which has been observed in 3 states, Pradesh, Kerala, and Maharashtra. Whatever.
Maharashtra, yes.
Whatever.
Yes,
you know, it's the K417N variant.
Yes.
And it's not just in India that this has been observed, this Delta Plus. It's also been observed in other countries, including Japan, Nepal, Britain, you know, and other parts of the world.
Yes.
Now, what this means, clearly, is that the battle against the virus is not over. Scientists keep telling us that it will keep mutating. And this particular Delta Plus is said, you know, not to respond easily to existing vaccines. Maybe if we take 2 doses of a particular vaccine, maybe that will, you know, help. But generally, it's found to be even far more resistant to any vaccine than the Alpha variant. The Alpha variant is the original Kent variant,
yes,
of the vaccine. Now, you brought the point about the Methodist Orthodox Church in Texas. Well, this raises the question about human rights, privacy rights. You discover that, yes, whereas J.P. Morgan, you mentioned Morgan Stanley, right?
Yes, I did.
Stanley Morgan. You mentioned Stanley Morgan, but there's also J.P. Morgan, which is a rival company. In parts of the United States, they've also said, that company has said, if you are not fully vaccinated, don't come to work. Stanley Morgan, which is a rival company, has also come up with that particular rule. But the question is, you know, where do you draw the line between this compulsory vaccination and the right of the individual to privacy, which was the issue that was raised by the nurses at the Orthodox Methodist Hospital in Texas. And 117 of them went to court to challenge this. Now they've been sacked because the company has the backing of the court. The court is saying, look, this is not about your rights as workers. This is about preventing the loss of lives. And one of the workers, Jennifer Bridges, was particularly reprimanded for, you know, an analogy, saying that, look, this is like the Holocaust. This is like the company adopting the tactics of the Holocaust. But the judge did not agree. Yes. But the big issue is about human rights. Can people take decisions about their own health? Or must companies dictate, you know, what they should do with their own personal health?
Well, I think that Holocaust comparison is straight out of the far right in the U.S. There's a member of the House of Representatives who was forced to apologize after a few weeks for making that same comparison. It's a completely disgusting thing to say, quite frankly.
A Republican congresswoman.
Disgusting thing to say. But the point is that you cannot be compelled to work somewhere. So if you really have a problem with their policies, then you have the option to quit, or you have to be fired, which is what has happened. Because at the end of the day, you still have autonomy over your own body and can decide what vaccines put in it or not, as the case may be. But it's such a shame that a lot of, you know, false narratives, fake news, as Donald Trump called it, has gone around the world and really taken hold. I hear a lot of things till now about people thinking that the vaccines are demonic in some way. All kinds of theories, and this is what these people believe, and it's most unfortunate. When you now have this Delta variant, you now have Delta Plus, I told you we're going to go all the way to Omega with the variants if this carries on. When people just refuse, when people refuse to get vaccinated, the virus will continue to mutate and become even more intractable. And we might end up needing booster shots, which I'm hoping we avoid.
And just to mention that in the same hospital, 24,000 workers complied with the directive.
But isn't it ironic that it's nurses and doctors who are refusing to take the vaccine?
It is ironic.
And many of the vaccine skeptics are people in the medical profession.
Frontline, yes.
And it's very sad that there's a third wave already in Africa. John Nkengas has been talking about it. I think it's time to happen that even more. It's not come here yet. And concerning people, demonizing the vaccines, it is sad that people still take their phones and read Breitbart.com at a point in time like this.
Yeah, they do.
It's sad.
Yeah, look at Uganda. Uganda's parliament has had to be shut down while the whole place is disinfected. It's really quite a serious situation in Africa. Everyone should just take the vaccine.
All right. Thank you, Adeswai.